Okay, we're back. I just have to mention, because I drove down the rabbit hole a little bit and like a bunny. So it says, because the name of the character is Dolly, the girl says she apparently there's our amazing producer pointed this out, that there's a lot talking about how she was fitted for braces, but they weren't used in the movie, or they were, but people are saying it's because the sun reflected off of her glasses, which made the illusion of braces. That her being the stereotypical geek girl, which there shouldn't be a stereotypical geek girl, but that's what they were calling it back then, that she automatically would have worn braces, and that they were cut out of the film as a white flash and flashing over her teeth briefly. However, the editing back then wouldn't have done that. I think people don't realize how editing worked back in the day, So it's fascinating, and it's fascinating how much of a debate there is about this one scene, right?
This is probably the one that gets the most fights brought out about, Mandela Effect being legit or not, and because this is the one, this is my hill to die on. I swear that I showed it to my adorable kids, and at one point when we were doing the James Bond marathon, and they recall, as our wonderful producer mentioned on the break, they remembered the braces. So that would have been a home video release probably, but I went back to my original VHS on my VHS player, and no, she didn't have braces. So,
well, it's interesting. I wonder if anybody, I'm sure people have done a study of things that were in movies and then later cut out of movies when it went to a cinematic, when it went on to VHS and things like that. I mean, with streaming and everything, it's not so much, but it used to be this was copied and there's a copy of it, and there's, every now and then a director, George Lucas, would get really excited and redo, and you remember it a certain way.
And that's what I thought had happened.
Isn't it like kind of similar to the Who Shot First?
Yeah, and also, exactly. But also things like, we remember the lines wrong. That's the most famous being, Darth Vader, Luke, I am your father. No, he never says that. No. He says, no, I am your father. And, but it's misquoted as Luke, I am your father. No, he's never said that. It's like Scotty, beam me up. Never said in the entire history of Star Trek. Even with the new stuff, he never says Scotty, beam me up. He's beam me up, but it's never beam me up Scotty, or Scotty beam me up. He never talks to Scotty and tells him to beam him in. So, which is interesting, because I'll tell you, as a Trekkie too, I distinctly go, no, he said that. Now, and I think it's interesting, and it's interesting that it's not, just one person, but this goes to, such a deeper thing of how memory works and how things work. Like we were, I was talking to somebody about what is that creature that is in is it Flatwood Monster that came out of an alien ship, and everybody remembers it coming out of an alien ship. We're not even going to get into the Flatwood right now, but there's a group of people with this same shared memory of things. And this leads you to go, did this happen? Or was it one of these memory things where, maybe you talked about the braces thing, for instance, with both your amazing kiddos, and did they then supplant that there would be braces because you talked to them about the braces, right? And that's the traditional, this is what people are doing. People are misremembering it. Play it again, Sam was never said in Casablanca. It's these are movies that were from before your time, audience. But some of our audience, but there's actually a magazine out now that from Life that says that is the most favorite movie of all time. Yes. How the fuck do they know that that's the most favorite movie of all time? Like, seriously. Well, that was the one where they interviewed all the filmmakers and had them list their top 100, and then they ranked them. And the thing is, it never was number one on many, but it was always in the top 5. So that's why it and Citizen Kane are way up there, because they're always in the top 5, even though they're not number 1 for a lot of people. But Jaws is on that list. Speaking of not Moonraker Jaws, but real Jaws, And that's another one that's got one of those misquotes, which is we're going to need a bigger boat. It's you're going to need a bigger boat. That's just, we heard it wrong. It's been misquoted so often that, that's why these things come out. But now where the theories get into this is where we have fun with the conspiracy theories, right?
Okay.
Why these things are happening, why these things are going the way they are. There's a man who was driving around his hometown, going back to visit his favorite place. And he was going to be bringing his wife there soon to show where he grew up. And
Okay.
he goes in and he drives by one of his favorite restaurants.
Okay.
And it's at this wonderful location on the beach that he's like, oh, they opened a new one right on the water. So you can actually go out onto the beach afterwards and do all this wonderful things. So he was thrilled with this. And so he can't wait to bring his wife there. And it's right down the street from where he lived, but then he goes by where he grew up and his parents' house isn't there anymore. It's like, oh, been bulldozed and there's these big fancy houses there now. This whole area has been rebuilt. And then he goes, but he's like, but wait, my uncle and aunt live next door and their house is now this big fancy house. And all this other weird stuff's going on. So he goes like, what the heck is, my town has been gentrified and I didn't even know it. My aunt and uncle didn't tell me they've moved. And he goes back to his hotel.
Okay.
And, just crashes for the night, but he's excited to show his wife that, she flies in, he picks her up in the airport. They go to sleep. The next morning he gets back and he's going to take her to this wonderful restaurant and show her where his parents grew up. Well, the house is there and his aunt and uncle are living next door. And the restaurant is down the street, not where he can't find it. He drives like 10 streets, can't find it. Finally pulls up Google Maps, types it in. The nearest one's a mile away. And it's not on the water. It's across from the water. And they've never had a location on the street. He talks to the managers like, I thought did you guys open one up on this beach? And they're like, no, we never had one on the beach. So he's convinced he slipped into an alternate universe for a little bit, or parallel reality.
Multiversing is what we're talking about. Multiverse.
Exactly. And so he was convinced that he had all these memories. And if he had stayed there, he was convinced he might be stuck in that timeline. Now, there are other people who say things like this. And so the theories go that maybe that's the Mandela effect, is we're remembering these parallel universes, also, alternate realities that are merging. So we're getting these timelines. And why are they merging? CERN.
Well, I'm assuming it has to do with Dr. Strange.
Yeah. Strange is the real reason. Although I am a big fan of Brother Voodoo or Dr. Voodoo.
Yeah.
But
why do they think it's happening?
They think it's the Hadron Collider and the Higgs boson particle.
What the hell is Hadron Collider and the words? What are those things?
Think about the timeline here. All right, so this company called CERN decides they're going to build a machine. They want to discover more about the universe. Okay. And we know there's this theory that right after the Big Bang, there was these particles that, to help physics make sense, right? There's this missing particle, this thing that could do things out of nothing. And it became known as the Higgs boson particle because boson was it's too scientific. I'm not going to get into that. Let's listen to a science podcast. Call Neil deGrasse Tyson. He'll tell you all about it.
We'll get him on here and he can explain.
We'll get him on at some point. He can give us the details. But anyway, I am not a scientist. I'm a cryptid author, a folklorist. But anyway, they decided to make this machine, a particle collider that would make big giants. They did like 10 years worked on it, did all the 10 years of excavation, made this big circular thing. And there was no hiding it from the world. And that was but because they were doing all this, the world was like, wait a minute, you're building a machine to remake the Big Bang? What's going to happen? This could destroy the universe. This could cause all kinds of problems. And they're like, but we need to see if this particle exists. And this is the only way we can make it happen. So they turn it on and it works. The machine works.
Okay.
But the world doesn't end. We're all here, right?
Okay.
And they do discover what may be that particle. That's not 100%, but they're pretty sure that it might be. And it's still not 100%, right?
Got it.
Now, people say they did create another universe when that came on, that they did create an alternate timeline when that came on. And that's when all these weird Mandela effects start happening. Guess what? It's in the 90s, the 90s, when all these things, supposedly Mandela's supposed funeral and all these other things were in the late 1999, 2000s, when the collider turned on for the first time. The Moonraker videos were coming out around this time. So
I have a question for you. If we're going down this very interesting yet maybe scientific rabbit hole. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, I just sneezed on the podcast. Maybe not. Our producer.
That's all right. Godzilla.
But
Godzilla, you.
Yeah, I may have just literally caused the butterfly effect. Different podcast. But my question is, do you think, do you feel that there is potentially one or more? Because you see, like now they have all these photos and stuff coming out from many, many moons ago, though, when people look like us or are walking with a legitimately like
a
phone,
cell phone
like
from
cell
1920.
Phone.
Yeah.
And so it begs to wonder, do they collide at the same time? Are they running on the same time, or are there already sort of, the theory of if you make certain decisions, it takes you down a different path? I kind of wonder if there's a whole, like, you intersect and go a different direction with things, because there are definitely, like, the Luke, I'm your father, as somebody who actually saw the original Star Wars in the theater when I was 3 years old. I have a picture of me in my ladybug dress from going to it before anybody knew what the fuck it was. Opening night. I remember Luke, I'm your father from Empire Strikes Back when I went and saw that in the theater as well. Chinese Man Theater, Los Angeles. Thank you. But I remember that line for the longest time until somebody was like, that's not the line. But I'm wondering how many of those and what the population that remembers it one way versus the other. And are we continuing to intersect? I just got very, very metaphysical there.
No, and that's 100%. That's the thing with this. You can rabbit hole this. Of course, physicists say, yes, alternate universes exist because this Higgs boson particle does things that shouldn't exist in our universe. They should not exist in our universe. So they have to come from something other, something outside. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about that. He says these things are other. They're from another place. But he doesn't feel like anybody can travel between alternate universes. Most physicists think, no, there's no way that guy traveled to the restaurant in an alternate universe. That's something just weird. Is it alternate timeline? That's another thing. Did somebody make a decision? Did a time traveler go back with his cell phone in 1920 and cause a problem? The other thing is, of course, the other theory, which some scientists are big fans of, and that's the Matrix theory, that we're all in a simulation. And these are the glitches when a software update came through and it didn't work. Because if we're all living in a box and we all get the same updates, hey, everything's great, and nobody knows we're living in the box. But now suddenly, we're all Truman showing this or something, but then.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I remember when The Matrix came out, and I know you did as well.
Yep.
And I think that movie, in a way, was terrifying, because you go, could that really happen? Especially when Agent Smith explains that they started with the utopia, but we wouldn't accept the programming. Like, it couldn't be just that great. We can't do it all the time, which is a whole other thing, why you can't, like, literally get everything you want and still be a happy human being, right?
Right.
It's interesting to think how much of this is created by how we believe it should be perceived, which goes, somewhat not the alternate universes, but it goes back to it. Interesting when you talk to people who've witnessed events, especially ones that have some sort of trauma to them, what exactly they recall from it happening. Like there was a serial killer that was they called him the Yorkshire Ripper, right?
Right.
And
Right.
he went through, and part of the big problem with that investigation was how the eyewitness reports were so messed up that they were giving all these false leads. And that's happened over and over again in crimes that, we see on TV shows, the little person coming in to do the, behind the scenes, blah, blah, blah. They're going to, go, I can ID this person that came in. But in real life, that's not used as much, because
Yeah, they can't. Yeah.
people's remembering and then add time into it. So you go back from Moonraker when you originally saw it, which was what year, my friend?
Oh, when I originally saw it, had to be, I was a kid. So it had to be, when it first came out, was it 81, 82, somewhere? Right around Empire Strikes Back time. So.
Okay. So let's just say it's 81, 80, 82. I'm going to Google it while we're sitting here because that's what.
Yeah. Because that's what we do.
Proud people on the show do is, when did rumor? But so then when do you think you saw it at the drive-in?
The drive-in would have been 1989, 1988, 89. That would have been the year.
Okay, so
right around that holiday.
Came out in 79.
79, right. So
10 years later, you watched it and you remembered the braces, right?
Yep. And I'm still seeing them every night as I'm watching it at the drive-in. So
okay. So then let's fast forward to when you remember the first movie night-ish with the kiddos. And when was that?
That would have been around, late 99, 2000s, probably. Callie could probably, early 2000s, definitely.
Okay.
Which, no, Callie remembers it. The voice in the other room just said 2010, 2011. So
you've got 10-year jumps, right, that you're talking about here to change this, but your memory is so set, right?
Yeah. But that would also been after the Hadron Collider turned on.
Well, that's true, but I'm just saying it's interesting because you take Empire Strikes Back. I just looked that up. Like, when did it release, right? Empire Strikes Back released May 21st, 1980.
Yep.
Right? People have been saying, Luke, I'm your father since that movie came out, right? And when did that go to DVD, right?
Yeah.
Or sorry.
VHS would have been like a couple years later because it took forever.
Yeah, no, back then it took 84. It took 4 years.
Yeah, that's people don't realize. I remember Star Wars didn't come out till 84, I think, and Jedi didn't even come out for another year after that. So
yeah, okay, we're not doing Star Wars on the show. I'm just saying for that many years though, because you're talking about 3 decades that you perceive this movie one way, but it's different. And you're not the only one that perceived it that way. It's like, how much stuff do we insert? And then it gets into how much do we insert based on our background or certain things? Like, is there some degree of, you look at, I'm about to bring a John Hughes movie into this.
Oh, hey, good. Another one.
It's going to make sense. Here we go. We're going to go on a journey. Here we go.
Yeah, let's go.
If you watch 16 Candles, which is one of my favorite, I love John Hughes, a huge fan. There's some stuff in his things that are very dated, but they were 80s movies, but I do enjoy them. So, but John, what is his name? Anthony Michael Hall is the nerd in that, and he has braces. I believe John Cusack and the other gentleman who was in that played the other major nerds with him, getting the girls' panties and stuff like that. Yeah. Another part of the movie that was dated, but I'm getting to a point, I promise, is he came across because he was the nerd. That was the nerd look. You had the big glasses and you had the braces on your teeth.
Right.
A lot of times they had acne and things like that was how they showed a nerdy person. I mean, there was an entire movie series called Revenge of the Nerds. Which
again,
included the stereotypes of what they said nerds were. So I wonder how much that truly played. Like, we expected the character to look like that, So in our minds, they look like that. You got to kind of wonder how much things like that make you think of think those kind of things, you know.
So yep, so definitely, gang, please put in the comments, does Dolly have braces?
We will do a poll. Does Dolly have braces?
Does Dolly have braces on eerieadventure.com? So now we'll go on the Eerie Adventure for this.
Okay,
you ready?
Let's go. I'm ready.
So where do you go to find classic VHS and classic, there's every town has a collector store. And my personal favorite here in Tampa is a place called Viper Video. They have all the little independent releases that you're not going to see streaming anywhere, the local independent horror films and all that. They also carry classic VHSs, and they carry laser discs and all that. So you can find your own Mandela effects. Go back to those despecialized Star Wars editions and find C-3PO silver leg, and other things like that. Yes, those are other Mandela effects. People, what? C-3PO had a silver leg? Yes, he did. But we went to a place when we were at GalaxyCon. I took you all to one of my favorite places. It's a chain up north, sadly not down here in Florida way, called Half Price Books. And how much money did you spend there?
I don't want to talk about that. Stop calling me out on our podcast.
This is definitely not a place. Yeah, this is definitely not a place you should be allowed in if you are a book hoarder, video hoarder, or any kind of hoarder with a credit card. You should not be allowed in these stores. They have truckloads of just collectible stuff like that, and usually at decent prices. And we went to one of those, and I was able to find the original novelization of Moonraker. Guess what's in the novelization?
Braces.
I
kind of wonder, how much, I guess it's a rabbit hole that, and is it there? Is it not there? It's interesting because I wonder how many James Bond fans that read, because a lot of people used to read the books that went along with the movies and stuff like that. How many people just discussed, like, oh gosh, there was a movie about this, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head because I didn't do the research before I got on here. But one of the things is talking about how much you say something and then it becomes a real thing. Right.
Like
how
may
much
the force be with you from Obi-Wan, but the only person who ever says that to him in the whole movie is Han Solo.
Exactly. There's so many things like that we talk about, and we talk about them. So how much does something that you talk about become real and become a thing, which can get into a whole weird, scared thing? But it's kind of like, you think about, I'm going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole before our producer tells us that we have to be shut up. But here's my other rabbit hole. John Hughes. But you think about cults or groups of people that believe something like the end of times is coming. Let's just talk about, the cult, the Hale-Bopp cult, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Heaven's Gate.
So, Heaven's Gate used a bunch of stuff that was, and there's a ton of great documentaries about the Heaven's Gate and books and stuff like that. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
We'll do cults down the line. Yeah.
Yes. But one of the things it talked about, which is interesting, is they, all these people were firmly convinced that this comet coming was the signal that they needed to leave because the world was ending, right? And one of the things that ties back into a little bit of sci-fi on this was Michelle Nichols, who was Uhura on Star Trek's brother, died in that cult thing, right?
Yeah, he was convinced.
But they believe this truly based on events. They had convinced themselves so much of this based on different things that had happened in their interpretation of the things that had happened, to the degree you just go, how much is it the Mandela effect, alternate universes, or how much of it is the ability for human perception to be changed based on our environment?
And again, charisma plays a part. if somebody tells you, hey, this is what happened, then suddenly that's in your head. Oh, this is what happened. That's what we talk about. You were talking about your true crime. That's why witness testimony can be easily swayed and can be easily, written off. And that's why we have so many people. Oh, this man was on death row for 20 years. Oh, because of one guy testified against him. Guess what? Police coerced that guy. And guess what? That was all thrown out. There's.
And they talk about that too from getting confessions. Like one of the biggest things in and there's documentaries on this too, just literally there's shows about getting confessions, because they'll have people in there for so many hours, right? And they, what is the Netflix one, the murder one, where they
narrows it down.
No, I know, but it's one that just came out, but it's about a gentleman and a younger man who were both convicted of this murder. They ran a junkyard.
Oh, yeah, making a murderer.
Making of a murderer, right?
Yeah, where the one kid admits that he admitted to it,
but he was, he had some mental disabilities, and they've proven that, and they had him in a room without his parents and I got to the end of that, and of course it was told from the perspective of the person doing the docuseries, both of them, part 1 and 2. But I got to the end of that as a true crime person going, I have no fucking idea what happened. Like, because I go, this seems a lot like the police built this thing up. They created this, at the end of it, do you go like, yes, that happened? No, that didn't happen. But I can tell you now, there's an entire group of people who've watched this that have their perception on how that happened and how it went down.
Yep,
right?
And that's one of the things. One of my favorite filmmakers, Werner Herzog. Of course, I would like to see the baby from The Mandalorian, but he was a film director before that. And he did some amazing documentaries. And he was at a convention of documentarians, and they were all talking about how they have to remove yourself from the situation and don't have an agenda and just document. And he's like, no, he jumped up on the stage like, you're filmmakers. You have to, insert yourself into the documentary. You have to prove your point. That's the whole point. And it basically got booed, by everybody. And he's like, oh, you're a bunch of crybabies. Happy New Year. And he walked away.
Wow.
We'll have to do a whole thing on Herzog at some point. Just the man got shot 3 times during an interview, and he still continued talking because he's like, it's not a significant bullet. How badass is that?
But Monty Python, that's another one where people remember the scenes completely differently.
Oh yeah. People remember skits that were that they don't they thought were Monty Python, but were something else, like they were Benny Hill or something like that. But because it's all late night PBS, we screw them up in our heads and all that. And there's so I think it's a bit of everything. I think it's people misremembering things. I keep thinking,
I want from our audience whether or not they're from an alternate universe.
That's true. Well, the man who emailed me the whole story about the restaurant, man, that's when I talked to him, he was convinced that he went into an alternate timeline. So, and
and there are many stories of that happening, right?
Yeah.
Or things being moved around, and I am not, to say that couldn't have happened. I get it. Science is interesting. Callie just threw us off by saying that her dad added an additional their dad
added an additional L to their name in one universe.
That's a whole other universe. You can go to the one where the name is correct, but I think to discount what that person perceived, and that's one thing that I've seen in doing the amount of interviews that I because I came, my previous lifetime was doing human resources, and I can't tell you how many interviews I did with people, and the perception was different every single time.
Yeah,
right?
If you talk to 3 different people about the same event, you're going to get 3 different stories.
Yeah, no, totally. But you also, if you talk to them, even if they were the only one at the event, right? And say, for instance, you have video or something that shows that there's one thing about lying, but there's one thing when they're so certain about what happened. Or, you watch a lot of the spooky stuff, which we can, we're going to get into and stuff, but the spooky things on how things happen. And when two people were in the same room and had two different, walked into the same room and had two different ones, like you just go, there may be something too, is there universes butting up against each other and you pass into and out of them. Right? Which is creepy as hell to think of, because what if you did get stuck?
Yeah.
What if that guy did get stuck and he didn't have a wife in that other universe?
Yeah, he didn't have a wife and his parents were gone. That house was destroyed. His parents' house was destroyed, and his aunt and uncle are gone. Maybe he doesn't exist in this universe. It's some crazy stuff. It can definitely mess with your mind.
I was gonna say, does the person that's your person in the other universe come in, or are there two of you? Like that gets into a whole entire thing. Like, do you switch places? Meaning, is there somebody in that other universe going,
That's why I have the goatee now, because of I switched universes, and that's why I'm not the nerdy fat kid anymore. Well, anyway, on that note, gang, now that I am evil Mark from the mirror universe, let's oh my gosh, so let's plug our socials. What have you got? You've got another dozen episodes of Drinking with Authors coming.
I have Drinking with Authors. We actually for this year have moved to doing 2 authors a week, because we have so many authors, which is fantastic. I love getting drunk with authors. So we have a lot of episodes coming up. I know that we're going to both be at Pensacon. So if anybody's in the panhandle of Florida and would like to come meet us, that would be fantastic. Please feel free to drop by. If you want to come explain to us your Mandela Effect, we would love that.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that.
And then you're going to be at Mad Monster Con.
Yeah, the week right before that. Yeah, in North Carolina. And then if you follow our website, the Eerie Adventure website, will take you to all of our upcoming appearances. And we can also you can reach out to us with your stories if you have a Mandela Effect, if you have a thing that's happened to you, or that you want to discuss with us. And we talk cryptids, monsters, ghosts, high strangeness, conspiracy theories. But I like to think that conspiracy theories in the modern age are usually just spoilers. Because a lot of them are coming true in my lifetime, which is crazy. I have a follow-up from our last episode, which was on Cocaine Bear.
Oh yeah.
I have an email I received that we brought up Woody Harrelson's dad, Charlie Harrelson, the hitman.
Yes.
Some consider that he might have been the man who actually killed Kennedy.
Really?
Not Lee Harvey Oswald, who was the fall guy. They think either he did Kennedy, he killed Kennedy, or he's the guy who organized it all. So because he was the professional hitman of note at the time. So we'll be delving more into that research as I can, but that was very good. Thank you guys for sending that in. So
what are we talking about next time? Have we decided what we're talking about something next time? What is it?
I think we're gonna just kind of leave this one on a teaser, just there's more to come. So yes. And I think we're gonna delve more back into the spooky because I think it's about time we talk some ghosts.
Oh, I'd love to talk about ghosts, especially if they involve. No, just kidding. I'm not going to say that out loud. No, but I do love being spooked. So that'll be fun. Well, awesome. So guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, keep up with us. We'd love having you and hearing from you. And that's all I have, Mark. Do you have anything else?
That's all I got. We're going to let Destiny Beard play us out again. Thank you again, Destiny, for this amazing theme song. It has been incredible to listen to. And Callie, once again, thank you for your incredible production skills. I cannot wait to hear how this one hits the pipe. And tell your friends, tell everybody, share us. Let's get this thing. Let's build this community. I'd love to hear more stories and and see what else we can come up with. And as always, we'll see you on the other side.
See you then. Bye.